Police are looking for 4 people involved in another drive-by shooting in Sydney's west. Our reporter Claire Aird joins us from the suburb of Merrylands, where shots were fired into a block of flats. Claire, just take us through the events of last night.
Karina, basically, as you can see behind me, there's 2 units in an apartment block in Merrylands in Sydney's west. Now, they were fired at by what looks to be 4 men who made off in a white car shortly afterwards. Now, witnesses called police and there was a patrol car around the area at the time. They gave chase to the 4 men in that white car. There was a small collision. Now, the 4 men jumped out of the car and made their way off. Police gave chase, but they couldn't catch up with them, so they deployed a helicopter shortly afterwards, and as well as a dog squad. Now, I could hear that helicopter just a short time ago, so they are still looking for those 4 men in that white car. Now, I should mention too that nobody was actually injured in the shooting. There are people who live in those 2 apartment blocks, and 2 units rather, in the apartment block, and they were there at the time. One person though has been treated for shock, and obviously this comes on the back of a number of shootings in Sydney, and police are investigating whether this shooting is related to bikie violence across the city.
And Claire, have police given a description of the 4 people that they're looking for?
Look, Karina, not as yet. Obviously, it happened overnight and we don't have that information as yet. We do know that police have opened up the street again, and as I mentioned before, they will be investigating if this is related to bikie violence, which we've heard so much about in the past month.
Exactly, and it comes after another weekend of violence and trouble in Sydney.
Yeah, that's right, Karina. Look, we're up to 21 shootings in Sydney this month, and I suppose possibly counting. It's interesting to note that the New South Wales Bureau of Crime Statistics actually released a report earlier this month saying that shootings have gone up 40% in the past year. It is worth noting, however, that in 2002 there were 30 shootings a month, and as I mentioned, we're up to 20 at the moment. Now, just to go through some of those shootings that have happened over the weekend, there was a man at Riverwood who was shot dead. Now, police are still investigating that incident. They've established that he was not that incident is not related to bikie violence. However, that man had been involved in some shootings previously, and that's where that's up to. Now, on that other shooting that happened in Newtown last week, where a police van was torched outside a tattoo parlour in Newtown, that 47-year-old man faced court yesterday. Now, he was refused bail, and of course there are another other shootings that are still being investigated at the moment as well. Last week, responding to this outbreak of violence that seems in Sydney, Barry O'Farrell, the New South Wales Premier, has announced a series of measures aimed at targeting bikie-related violence. Some of those include that bikies will not be allowed to wear their colours, and as well, they will not be allowed to own or have anything to do with tattoo parlours across Sydney, Karina.
Claire Aird in Sydney, thank you very much for the update.